My name is Jasmit Phulka.
And my name is Sonny Gill, and today we're just here to talk about diversity, and in particular when it comes to policing and Abbotsford Police, and how they do with diversity in the community. So I think the first one, maybe we'll just start with what are some challenges that you think that around diversity and racism that police may not see?
I think there's a couple of things. From my personal experience, I would say sometimes police might come in with a lens. For example, I've been pulled over and I've been checked at many restaurants by the gang task force just because, for example, I like to wear designer clothes or designer shoes, and I like to wear a gold chain that represents my religion, and I've been, I would say, stereotyped for that. And I've been told to step outside, and then I kind of gotta explain who I am, and I think the situation is solved. And I've also been pulled over, and the first question I've gotten is, "You driving your dad's car?" So I think that's one thing police may not see sometimes. They might see criminals that they know and might be always be wearing flashy clothes and stuff, and I think they have that lens on all the time, and sometimes they may not see just a normal civilian wearing that, and I think they might judge him with the same lens they might judge them.
Right. Yeah. No, I personally haven't gone through that experience before becoming a police officer, but I totally see where you're coming from, because I think what you're probably referring to is like the bar watch programs and stuff like that, where police go to these establishments that quite frankly have gang members and whatnot going there as well, so they're trying to figure out a way to protect the public. And the good way for that is a lot of these gang members are the ones that are being targeted in broad daylight. You've probably seen recently the shootings and stuff like that. So I think it's hard to balance that, and then at the same time have the public feel that they're being fully respected as well. Because you're probably, when that happens to you, you're probably thinking like, oh my, invasion of your privacy, right? Like you're just there having dinner, you just order food or whatever, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, can I see your ID? I want to see if you're associated with gangsters or whatever, and if you are, you got to leave, right? So
and I think you make a valid point. I think this, me personally, I've had some bad experiences, but also I've been with a group of guys.
Right.
So maybe sometimes it's not even an ID, you just get kicked out.
Oh, really?
So it's different. I think you make a valid point, and I think they're doing their job as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I agree with you, and I think it's hard from both sides, because at the same time you want to protect the public, and you want to do your job. At the same time, you might offend someone without even trying to offend someone.
Exactly, and like for them, and I'm not trying to defend. If somebody's just going up to everybody that looks a certain way, that's not the way you should be doing those tasks in policing in general. But it's like, I don't know who this person is. To me, he looks like somebody that could be associated with these other people, or there's a big group of people. I don't know who those people are. And then sometimes, it's up to the officers. Like, either you just leave it alone, but then if something bad happens, then it's gonna be like, well, why didn't you do anything, right? Or you could just say, hey, we're doing a bar check, we're doing bar watch check. I need to see your identification. You're saying people just kicking you out without checking stuff. That's interesting to me. I haven't heard that people just like, hey, you guys gotta leave. That's a bit. But generally speaking, the premise of those checks is like public safety, right? It's like it's not meant to be a way for police to like profile a certain race or color and stuff like that, right? Then personally, I haven't seen that in working here in Abbotsford. But when you're telling me it happens, I'm sure it does happen out there, right? So
and then it actually brings me to the question was, I was gonna say, now especially in 2021, I feel like police do have a lot of eyes on them. Like for example, me saying I've been kicked out, and I bet you there's probably 50 other people that have the same bad interactions with police.
Right.
With everything going on, like BLM and all these movements on social media, and like nowadays, like you see videos on YouTube like every day, like you get pulled over, the first thing someone does is rip out their phone and start videotaping it. And would you say that has changed the way you conduct your job, or has there been any extra pressure just knowing that like everything you might be doing might be documented?
Yeah, I don't think it's changed the way that so I've been a cop for 3 years. Before that, I was obviously a normal person. I went to school. I was volunteering in the community. and it hasn't really changed the way I do my day-to-day business. It has added the pressure for sure, right? Because now you're even though sometimes you know you're doing something right, and this is like the law is permitting you to do this, it's your duty to do this task, whatever you're doing. But you're scared that somebody's gonna think somebody's gonna criticize you for doing that, right? And you're gonna have to face extra scrutiny, which is nothing wrong with scrutiny, but when everything you do is being questioned, and I'm not saying I experience this in Abbotsford. I know policing in general as a profession is probably experiencing this more often now, but generally speaking, like if you have all these eyes on you, and a lot of people are just like without even any explanation saying the police are wrong or the police are targeting this person. And I've had it where I've been dealing with somebody that's I'm sick, and I've been dealing with somebody that's sick, and they're like, well, why are you targeting that person? I'm like, I'm not targeting this person. I'm sick as well, right? And I'm not a robot here. I'm a human being, and I'm not doing this just because my my uniform is telling me to do this. I'm doing this because I have a reason, and so that's a little frustrating at times, and I'm sure other officers are frustrated just by constant questioning. You're making stuff really hard when it's not even what you think it is, right? So it's hard. It's hard for that, and I think part of that the police do have a role in that. Like we have a media liaison officer, and we try to inform the public as much as we can. The only tough thing with that is, let's say there's a big incident here in Abbotsford last night, whatever. Public wants to know what happened, right? Fair enough. You want to know what happened. A lot of those are active investigations, and if we just tell the public everything that happened, first of all, we have to look into privacy, right? The person involved. If somebody calls the police or somebody's a victim of a crime, we're not going to go and just blast everything out there, and that person's going to feel horrible for calling the police, right? But generally speaking, we can't just tell every single detail in the onset, because those are still being investigated, and those things need to be confirmed before we tell anybody. So if you tell the wrong information, then that just looks bad for everybody, right? So I think police, it's a bit of both, right? It's like, obviously I do feel more pressure to answer your question, but I do feel like policing, it does help when you have more information out there, like social media and stuff like that. So it's kind of a good and bad thing. So with your question there, kind of just to piggyback off of it, like you've personally probably, I don't know if you've dealt with a lot of police officers, but you probably know people that have, or talk to people, and you said you go to different countries to compete and stuff like that. Like, have you noticed big differences between different areas?
I just feel like here, I feel like I have more rights, and there's gonna be more of a process. As in sometimes when I run into police over there, like I don't know what's gonna happen, and then like, for example, one time I was in Spain, and we just went out to have dinner with the team, all of Team Canada. We went to have dinner, and we were just finding a place to eat, and I guess there was like there's riots going on, so there's like protests and stuff, and like there's riots, and like we didn't know about what or what's going on at all, because we were just there for the tournament. And riot police came, and they started throwing tear gas. And like we were just like walking around, so we had to hide it like under like by a dumpster. And like I remember asking a local, like, hey man, like I'm from Canada, like if I go and talk to the cops, like can I get out of here? Like I don't know what's going on. And the local told me, he's like, dude, if you go and talk to the police, like they're gonna beat you up even more.
Wow.
And like that scared me and like the rest of the team, because we're like, damn, because they're like, they do foreigners worse out here. Right. So it really scared me, and I think so I think that's the biggest thing I would say is like when I go to these countries, I just don't know what's gonna happen. Some of the cops don't know English, so I can't even communicate with them. So like it's different. But like I said, back when I come home, I would say I feel like I have more of a more comfortable. But then I also feel like I'm stereotyped here in Canada, as in across the world. I'm not stereotyped because they don't know any better. They just see me as a normal person. But here in Canada, I feel like if I drive a certain car, if I dress a certain way, 100% going to be stereotyped. And it's happened to me. It's happened to my friends, so I think that's the difference. I feel more comfortable here in Canada, but I do feel like I get stereotyped across the world. I don't feel like I get stereotyped, but I don't feel as comfortable with police agencies. So
you're just like more, I guess you're familiar with Canadian laws. You know how Canadian police work. Versus if you go to the States or Spain and stuff like that, you don't know. I don't know either, right? Like you don't know what their normal process is.
Exactly.
You don't know what you could go to jail for.
Like countries like Cuba and stuff, like people just get sent to jail, like whatever, like like it's not like I feel like here we have a process. You have a right to a lawyer.
Right.
They're not going to take you to prison for no reason.
Right.
Might have a court date or something. There's steps to it. But in some of those countries, it's like, okay, just go spend the night in jail.
Right.
Something like that. And it's happened to a lot of people that I know. So I think that's a big difference.
Right.
In some of those countries, like I know, if foreigners are out, like going out and having a couple of drinks, they've been taken to the drunk tank just because they were foreigners, and so yeah. So I think it's here. It's less chance that we get I would say roughed around.
Right.
I feel like we have more rights here, and like
your
but in
freedom,
some of
you
those
got your
countries,
charter of rights, right?
Yeah, and I think in some of those countries, like police have more power,
right,
and they get away with more things.
Right. Yeah.
Because some of those countries they'll just take you to jail or do stuff just to get a bribe out of you.
Yeah.
They'll pull you over. You've done everything right, but they know you're a foreigner. Maybe they just want a bribe.
Right.
That's not something I'm gonna face here in Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
So that being said, like I know you said you've been born and raised in Abbotsford, and probably have your whole friend circle is mostly probably going to be from here, the local guys. But what do you say? What do you think that like the police in Abbotsford in particular does well, or might need to work on? Like, what do you think of that?
I think the police here does a good job of. I think we're in a really diverse community, and I think the police does a really good job of going out and trying to make their effort to engage with every community. I think, like for example, I'm Sikh, and whenever it's like our parade and stuff, police will be there. You'll see the police at the temple. So I think they do their share to learn about the culture and just get to know the people. And I think they do a good job. Also, like I think they did a really good job of their school officers. I know the school
youth squad.
Yeah,
school liaison.
Yes,
youth squad.
those. I think they do a really good job of that, and I think they do a fantastic job. I think. I know a lot of kids that have been, I would say, steered the right way. Maybe we're having some issues in school due to those officers. And I think those officers are doing a phenomenal job. And I think they might get less credit than they deserve. I think their role is really important. And I think that what the Abbotsford Police is doing with that is huge, because I think if you can catch the youth at that age, it's there's nothing that can beat that.
It's interesting you say that, because there are communities that are like looking at getting rid of those school liaison officers, and I think a lot of it stemmed from the events with policing and police brutality and stuff in the States, more so in the States. But I think what you're saying, that like they're a valuable resource, right? Because you don't want I went to high school here. I'm sure you did too. There's lots of there's lots of disputes generally. You get a bunch of guys together. It tends to, like, a bunch of kids together. It tends to sometimes go sideways, right? So to have a mechanism or a person in place, like a youth squad officer, somebody that a lot of kids might trust, right? Some kids might just dislike the police, and they just dislike authority, which is just the way it is, right? But having no youth officers in schools, and then having to deal with an incident, let's say there's an assault or something, and just having a new officer come in and deal with that and have no background, not even know the kids. Yeah. I don't think that's like long term. Like it doesn't help build community trust with the police. Yeah. Those kids might not even trust law enforcement or the law after that, right?
Yeah,
because
and I think you bring a valid point. I was going to say is like, I think as citizens, and I think just being part of society, a lot of people are feared of police. And whenever they see police, they have a mechanism to be scared or run, or they might be doing everything right, but they just kind of tense up. Right. Oh man, police is here. Why are they here? But I think having that officer in the schools, you get used to having an officer around you. Right. End of the day, like you yourself, you're a normal guy. You're the same as us. I think that's what people forget. Right. I think when they see that uniform, they portray you as someone else. Right. And I don't think they get a chance to actually know you. And like who is the man behind the uniform? Right. Or who's the woman behind the uniform? And I think that having that person at the school gives kids a chance to do that. You see a police officer every single day. Yeah. Slowly you start having jokes with them. Then you start understanding that, hey, this person is here to protect me. Yeah. Initially your guys' job is to protect us and the community. Right. And I think sometimes people forget that. Yeah. Police is an asset for ourselves, but I think sometimes we start thinking that our police are against us. And I think that's where a lot of people have issues with police, because end of the day, the police is here for us, not against us. But I think people start tensing up, and like now knowing yourself, knowing a bunch of officers, when I see police, it doesn't, I just have a couple jokes, ask them how their day is going, because I've had nothing but good run-ins with them, and I've met the people, and I've understood that they're just normal people just like me.
Right.
They have good days, they have bad days. But I think some people will benefit from having them at school, because if you never see cops your whole life, or maybe when you're younger you've had bad interactions with police, maybe due to your parents or some just a random, and then you see police 20 years down the road, you're just gonna neglect them.
Yeah.
And I think that will impact your relationship with police going forward, and then it's just gonna be trouble as you get older.
Yeah, and then it's just a vicious cycle. But like what you're saying about having a positive influence, like when I first got into this job, you get it for the right reasons, obviously, but a big chunk of what I do or what police do in general is you are the bearer of bad news, right? Mm-hmm. If I come to your house, it's very unlikely it's going to be for good news, right? Unless if your bike's missing and I'm returning your bike home to you, right? Mm-hmm. Or if there's a missing kid. But generally speaking, we deliver bad news. Hey, there was an accident and somebody was involved in an accident, or hey, your neighbor's complaining against you for cutting their lawn, or whatever complaint it is. So then it's very, most people, majority of the population, if they ever do deal with the police, it's because something bad has happened. Their car's been broken into. So when in school, when you're growing up in school and let's say if you get in trouble with the police, that's one negative interaction, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say you don't have another interaction for 10, 15 years, but you got that one, your baseline is that one negative one, and having positive interactions, whether not even in schools only, like community events, like you're saying, the Saki parade and stuff like that. When you have like buddy tournaments in Abbotsford, you'll see Abbotsford Police there, right? So I think having those positive influences at the end, at the long term, actually just pays off, because that's more people that trust the police, more people that will call us when something happens to them, and they think that police. Sometimes people just think that police are not going to do anything. What's the point, right?
Yeah. You know what? I actually had a 2-part question for you. Yeah. But my first part's going to be, so being Sikh yourself, growing up, recently, this is long last, I would say 10 years, we have a lot of issue with gangs and, and stuff. What would you say your run-ins of, because I know, for example, I've just talking to parents sometimes and stuff, they feel like police are racially profiling and this, that, and they feel like their kids are just targeted. Right. You being an officer here locally, and we've had quite the issue here in the last 10 years with a lot of stuff. Would you say you've how do you deal with that? Because I know a lot of parents, when they see you with their footsteps, they might try to talk to you in Punjabi, or they might try to tell you hey, my kid's good, or because I think I would say you're in a tough spot compared to just a normal officer. So I think you being Sikh, they feel like they can relate to you. Right. So how do you take off how do you put on your police lens and and take off all the other background noise and deal with the situation?
It's frustrating when, let's say you have to deal with you're dealing with a youth and you have to go to speak to the parents. Yeah. And sometimes the youth has done something wrong. Like, I'm not saying that just say the youth has to be punished, they've done something wrong. I'm just saying they've done something wrong, right? They either got into a fight, they stole from somewhere, or if it's gang related, they were caught with drugs or whatever it was, right? And very often, you will get parents that just don't believe you. Yeah. They're just, you're targeting my kid, like you said. And you're just like, why would I target your kid? Like, I don't even know your kid. I was involved in a file, or he's pulled over, or he's caught with drugs. I have no reason to target your kid, right? Exactly. Me personally. So they're just assuming, since I'm wearing a uniform, that I'm just coming after the kid. I hate brown people, whatever it is, and they just can't get it. And sometimes you have solid proof. You're like, no, this is what happened. Here's you want to see a video of it or whatever you have, and they're like, no, that's on my kid. I don't believe you, right? So that's one frustrating thing, right? Is when you hope to speak with the parents, so you don't have to go through the full courts proceedings, and you could deal with stuff alternative ways, but when you speak to parents, okay, this isn't gonna work. They're not gonna tell the kid to stop, you did something wrong and you shouldn't do this, or have some sort of internal home punishments for them, right? So it is frustrating that. So and like you said, I do have to very often speak to parents in Punjabi. Sometimes people don't know English, and try to explain to them hey, this is exactly what's happening. This is what the police powers are. This is what the police could do. This is what I'm telling you as a human being. Your kid is going down a wrong path. You need to talk to them. You need to be there for your kid. And the tough part with that is a lot of parents, in particular, that immigrant here from India and whatnot, or other countries as well, but they're here to make a living, right? They're here to live properly. So they're working a lot, right? They have their own business. They're working 7 days a week, 6 days a week, and they're not there. They're not home very often, and that sometimes does lead to problems with the kids, right? Because the kids have no parental figures at home. On the weekends, they're not going out to the mall with their family.
Yeah.
So all they're doing is hanging out with friends. And when it becomes a problem for everybody in the community is when those friends are not very good friends, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones who are egging them on to do this. Hey, can you do this for me? One small favor for me, and then it just progresses, right? So sometimes, by the time the police get involved, it's kind of, it's very late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I try to, it's tough. There's no right answer. There's no one answer for your question, but it's very tough dealing with
And
those situations.
And that actually brought me to my second question. Was I was going to ask you was, what would you say what was the Abbotsford Police doing to help the youth stay away from this, the gangs and all that stuff, and what can the community do, and what can even myself do, especially with this Indo-Canadian gang issues. What can we do? Because I feel like it takes two to tango, and I think the police can't do everything themselves. And I think the community can't do everything themselves. But I think the community and the police need to work together. And I actually read a quote this morning that was really cool, that reminded me of how powerful I think our experiences are on the youth right now. It said, legacy is not what you leave behind for someone. Legacy is something you leave in someone.
Right.
So I think even for myself, and I think for yourself, to pave the way for the youth is not what I'm going to leave for the youth or what I'm going to do. It's what I can instill in them, so when they're in our shoes, they can instill that in their kids. And I think that is how we're going to break the cycle. But I think as a community, I think we need to start instilling values and helping the youth to make right choices. But what would you say, things you guys are doing, or things that we could do to help make that possible?
So I know Abbotsford, as a community in particular, has been grappling with gang bans for a long time, right? Before I started, I've been a cop for 3 years, long before me. And there's lots of mechanisms in place from Abbotsford Police, and there's provincial mechanisms. They got the BC gang task force that's out there, and they do, they go to every community and stuff like that. So one program they have for adults in gangs is End Gang Life, is a gang exit program. So that's one thing that they have. In particular in Abbotsford, we have our first front line dealing with this is our youth squad, obviously, right? So they're the ones out there every single day. They go to a school, they interact with students. Principals might tell me there was a dispute over the weekend or something happened, and they're the ones who deal with those. They're sort of like even counselors in most situations. But recently we have a new program called, it's our gang intervention team is the team. It's a provincially funded program for Abbotsford Police in particular. And then they have a pathways program, they call it. So it's it's sort of in its infancy now. It's starting to get going. It took a while to develop. They looked at lots of research and other communities, what worked, what didn't. But first step is community engagement, right? So police have identified that we cannot deal with this problem just as police. We need everybody, the community, to be involved with us. Mm-hmm. We need them to be willing to listen to us. We need to listen to them, right? That's our first step, right? So this program, it works with, right now, the main focus is youth from 12 to 19 for this program, right? So so whether that's through referrals from the youth school liaison officers, parents refer youth, right? Family members refer youth, but it's 12 to 19 is the main focus at this point. And then after the community engagement, you have prevention, right? So that's more where police might be involved, and then basically the third one is sort of enforcement or kind of that's the third step. That's kind of when you have to if you're not seeing the results you want to see with the youth, and they're still going down that path, then you kind of have to step it up a little bit, right? So that's a program we got rolling right now for the gang intervention team. We have our gang crime unit, whose main focus is enforcement, right? So those are the units within Abbotsford. But that Pathways program, I think I could see having a great success, but only have a great success if the community actually reaches out, right? So because that works through referrals, right? And the problem in general is a lot of youth are not willing to engage in any of these, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard for the police to force somebody to do it. We can't force somebody to do that.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I would say the youth sometimes aren't involved, and I think we as a community we kind of turn a blind eye to it.
Right.
And I think as a community, everyone I think has to do a better job of it. Is like you said, notifying the individuals or helping the police in that sense. Because I think sometimes there's a blind eye given to it, and there's like, well, there's nothing wrong with him, or we're fine.
Brush under the rug, right? They
yeah,
just
exactly.
They just say, oh, kids do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, and there are some things that kids do all the time, and there's some things that you don't need to go, super hard on your kid for. But at the end of the day, if your kid doesn't have a job and is showing up with, he's got a Mercedes outside, and you didn't buy that Mercedes for him, and he doesn't work, it's a little bit of a red flag, right? It's like, how are you getting? You don't work. You're out all day. You don't work. You have money. When mom's doing laundry, your bags, your sweatpants are filled with money. Yeah. There's some clues, right? That hey, my kid might not be involved in the lifestyle that he or she is saying he is. And then, secondly, what can you do, right? So I know a lot of people go to like the temples and they try to reach out that way. So this is like a program where they're trying to all do it together because the police can't do it themselves. It's very hard for the police to do it themselves. So a lot of these kids won't even trust the police, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.